Helen's 65-year-old bones creaked awake, craving chaos. Sunrise bled gold over Auckland's harbor, but her gaze snagged on a paintbrush abandoned in a mug, stiff with last year's lilac. Ridiculous. She'd never held one steady. Yet here her pulse thrummed, lit by some stubborn spark whispering wreck canvas, not just your crossword routine. Across town, weekend art fair banners flapped, taunting. What if she slapped color onto doubt, let strangers gawk her shaky trees? Retirement wasn't a Helen's fingers hovered over a paintbrush, same one she'd used decades ago to dab gold stars on her daughter's school projects, now dusty with hesitation. Retirement had left her days smooth as Power Shell, polished empty. Fear slithered in like an eel-high tide. What if she'd become just another faded postcard on life's fridge? Auckland's winter lights slanted through community center windows, catching glitter in a spilled jar. She dipped her brush. Clumsy first strokes bled into something reckless, cobalt streaking sunrise orange. Muscle memory flickered. Laughter bubbled up as paint splattered her sweater, a Jackson Pollock accident that felt oddly lit. Weekly sessions became her compass. She layered acrylics over old doubts, textured as kauri bark. When flyers went up for a waterfront art fair, Helen hesitated, until spotting a teen's awe her seascape. "That's mean," kid muttered, Kiwi slang curling approval. Show day arrived with gumboots squelching on wet grass. Her display wobbled once, 65-year-old knees, betraying her, but stood firm beside quilts and carved tikis. Strangers leaned in, tracing brushstrokes with questions. One woman, silver-haired like her, whispered, "You've got stories in those waves." Helen's chest tightened. Not with fear, but fullness, like tide reclaiming shore. That paintbrush, once tucked away with mothballs, now hung between her fingers, not an ending, but a bridge. And colors? They were just getting started. Helen's 65-year-old bones creaked awake, craving chaos. Sunrise painted Auckland's skyline in peach streaks, but her hands itched for something messier than morning tea. A crumpled flyer for a community art class fluttered underfoot. Beginner's brushwork, no experience needed. She scoffed. Last time she'd held a paintbrush, Reagan was president. Still, she pocketed it, her knuckles brushing against car keys like a dare. Inside a sunlit studio smelling of turpentine and ambition, woman clutched a borrowed apron, sizing up easels like they might bite. A woman with silver braids and a smudge of cerulean on her cheek, Mira, instructor, handed her a brush. "Pressure's lighter than you think," she murmured. Helen's first stroke bled into a Rorschach blob. Mira grinned. "Perfect. Now wreck it." Week after week, she learned to unlearn. Fingers once stiff from decades of typing loosened around brush handles. She mixed colors like a mad scientist, cobalt and cadmium clashing until something unexpected bloomed. Her kitchen table became a battleground of half-finished canvases, her cat occasionally contributing paw-print critiques. Then came flyer for Ponsonby Art Fair. Mira nudged her. "Your stuff's lit, Helen. Enter." Panic fizzed in her throat. But under Myra's smirk, 65 and scared of glitter? She caved. Submitting felt like tossing her heart onto a conveyor belt. Show day arrived, her paintings wedged between a sculptor's twisted metal birds and a teen's neon graffiti. Strangers paused, tilting heads her abstract seascapes. One woman, fingers tracing a swirl of Prussian blue, whispered, "This feels like rain on skin." Helen's chest tightened. That brush, once just a stick with bristles, had spun her loneliness into language. By sundown, 3 pieces bore red dots. Woman clutched a check, its amount laughable next to her old CO's salary, yet it weighed more. Across room, Mira raised a champagne flute, her braids catching gold light. Helen lifted hers back, bubbles popping like tiny fireworks. Traffic hummed outside, but inside her, something quieter, brighter, took root. Retirement hadn't erased her. It had just cleared space for colors she'd forgotten her hands could make. Helen's 65-year-old bones creaked awake, craving chaos. Sunrise painted Auckland's skyline in sherbet hues, but her hands itched for something messier than pastel mornings. Retirement had turned her into a spectator, suddenly invisible, like a library book left too long on a shelf. But today, she'd swipe a paintbrush off kitchen counter and stab it into a jar of cerulean, daring universe to call her irrelevant. First strokes were a disaster. Canvas looked like a toddler's finger painting gone rogue. Woman scowled. Decades of balancing budgets, raising kids, and pretending to enjoy golf hadn't prepared her for this. But something about stubborn push of bristles against linen lit a spark. Maybe it was way mistakes could be smudged, layered over, turned into something new. She signed up for an art therapy workshop local community center, half expecting a room full of bored retirees sipping tea. Instead, she found a riot of color and women like her, some widowed, some just lost, all wrestling with identities that no longer fit. Instructor, a spry 70-something with ink-stained fingers, called their work soul archaeology. She snorted but kept digging. Weeks blurred into months. Her apartment became a gallery of half-finished experiments, a vase that leaned drunkenly, a self-portrait where her wrinkles looked more like battle scars. Doubt whispered she was wasting time. Then came flyer for Ponsonby Art Fair, tacked onto a cafe bulletin board between ads for yoga classes and lost cats. Submitting a piece felt like jumping off a cliff. But Helen slapped her best work, a wild, textured landscape where sky and sea collided, onto entry table. Opening night, she hovered near her painting like an anxious parent a school play. Then a stranger stopped, tilted their head, and said, "This one's got grit." Turns out, purpose wasn't something you retired from. It was something you painted into existence, one stubborn stroke at a time. Helen's 65-year-old bones creaked awake, craving chaos. Sunrise painted Auckland's skyline in sherbet hues, but her hands itched for something messier than pastel mornings. That dusty paintbrush on her windowsill winked her. Go on, wreck something beautiful. She'd spent 6 months shuffling between grocery aisles and daytime TV, a retirement script she hadn't signed up for. But today she swiped crimson across a blank canvas like she was slashing through invisible ropes. Paint splattered her apron, her wrists, her dignity. A tiny glob even landed on her left eyebrow, accidental war paint. Self-doubt slithered in. Who did she think she was, some late-blooming Frida Kahlo? But then, click. A tourist snapping skyline shots had caught her mid-stroke, arms flung wide, paintbrush a lightning rod for defiance. By afternoon, that photo had gone rogue on Instagram. Grandma Goes Picasso lit up local feeds. Her neighbor, Marjorie, a woman who'd once sniffed Helen's, dabbling, stopped mid-sidewalk gawk when she spotted crowd forming outside Helen's garage-turned-studio. Canvases leaned against lawn chairs, raw and riotous. One piece, a whirlpool of indigo and gold, stole show. Marjorie's scoff dissolved into stunned silence. "You made this?" Helen smirked, flicking paint from her brush. "Nah, elves broke in." Auckland's annual Ponsonby Art Fair came knocking next. Organizers wanted her, viral vitality, in their lineup. Standing there, surrounded by millennials and berets and critics with tilted chins, Helen felt her pulse sink with drumbeat under her ribs. This was chaos. This was hers. As applause erupted for her bold, brushy strokes, one thought blazed brighter than gallery lights: I'm writing my own story. And damn if it wasn't a page-turner. Helen's 65-year-old bones creaked awake, craving chaos. Sunrise over Auckland painted her studio in gold, but her hands itched for more than morning tea. Retirement had left her adrift, until a rogue paintbrush became her compass. First, smearing colors felt silly, like a kid finger-pasting mashed peas. But soon, strokes became stories. Blues whispered of lost sales, reds roared forgotten passions. Odd habit? She hummed ABBA while mixing cerulean. Local art fairs buzzed with her new energy, no useless retiree cliché here. Then came Twist, a community show. Nervous moms, bored teens, even gruff fishermen showed up, clutching half-finished canvases like life rafts. Helen guided them, not with lectures, but by laughing her own wobbly lines. Messy as magic, she'd wink. Walls filled with wild creations, each a rebellion against invisibility. On opening night, her once lonely brush danced in spotlights, now a symbol of shared fire. Strangers hugged over shared hues. A teen muttered, "This is legit lit," and Helen grinned, her wrinkles deepening like brushstrokes on wet paper. Age hadn't erased her, it had primed her. Grab a brush, paint your next chapter bold.